another episode of Debate That, where we discuss relationships, pop culture, social issues, and much, much more. My name is Jay.
I'm Sean. Nay isn't with us today,
We're
but
gonna hold it down for her anyway.
always and forever.
So
But I'm
she'll
Sean.
be back on the next show, and we'll get back to it. And y'all will have y'all ending. You know, she do the hand under her chin thing. We can get back to that. But anyway, Nostradamus, what's the question?
Our question today is: are there two Americas? What do you think?
What you got, Sean?
I think there is. I mean, you can look at it different ways, but I think there is. I mean, I almost think that I don't think any of it is for us, but I think it's like a government inside of a government, you know, that makes policies that benefit one side of America rather the other side of America. That's my personal opinion.
So I also think there's two Americas, but coming from people who have to live in the second America, then of course you're gonna see it. You know what I mean? And on the other side, you may not be able to see it because you don't have to deal with it on a regular basis.
Correct.
So for me, yeah, there are two Americas. When you're talking about justice, there are two Americas. When you're talking about
equality,
when you're talking about just life in general, just everyday life, there are two Americas. There was one thing that I definitely wanted to touch on. I can't remember right now, but when I do, we'll get to it. So here's the first question.
Well, you know, I honestly don't think it's two Americas. It's one. It's one nation, right? So
under God,
you know, that whole thing. So I don't think it's two Americas. I think it's one America, but I just think there's multiple viewpoints within America.
Like what?
There is.
Like, you know, it's like you could say it's two Americas, but I think it's really two viewpoints in the sense that if you always say I'm going to the South Side, you know somebody saying they're going to the hood. Why is the hood always got to be the South Side? So I think it's just a viewpoint of how people perceive things. But in general, I think it's just one America.
So you would say a viewpoint would be something like, because when you start talking about patriotism and you start talking about, you know, being an American, like patriotism for certain people may be different from patriotism for me. I get what you're saying about the viewpoints, but at the end of the day, let's look at Colin Kaepernick. I said his name all wrong. Colin Kaepernick. Dang, name it just went blank. Colin Kaepernick and his protest, right? What was that protest about, Sean?
Equality and not basically getting killed on these streets. It had nothing to do with a flag, had nothing to do with military. It's all about the injustice. And it went totally the other direction.
So if that was the whole premise, and he was even told by someone that was in the military that if you want to still be respectful to the flag and
then take a knee.
Then take a knee. But when he took a knee, it was like, oh, you're disrespecting the flag, you're disrespecting the troops. But at the end of the day, those troops fought for our right to be able to do that.
Correct.
So why can't, if a person is feeling, if a group of people are feeling oppressed, why can't they protest in that manner and not have to worry about any blowback? Like, this is, you look at what the actual issue is, and then you go from there.
Mm-hmm.
So when you so would you're saying viewpoints like that, those are different viewpoints?
I think viewpoints like that, but also just kind of like the way you grew up, right? Like, if you never grew up being from the hood, you just don't know what the hood is. You know what I mean? You know your area, and that's all you might know. And then even outside your area, you're probably only going to places that is similar to your area. So I think it's more so like people just are unaware of the differences that happen within the one America. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but let me say this just to piggyback off that part. You ever thought about why, when you look at a black community, we consider it the hood? You go up to another place and it might be Chinatown. You know, you go up to another place, you might have a bunch of, Indians and whatever the case may be. But where it's predominantly black people, it's basically presumed as it's the hood. You know what I mean? Versus you go down on 50, for an example, you might see Little Chinatown where they got banks, grocery stores, all of that stuff. Even though they kind of mixed up in the middle of, I guess, the so-called hood. You ever thought about that? Why we consider where we are, you know what I mean, as wherever the black people are dominant in is considered basically the hood versus, just another area, you know what I mean, of this is where you at, you know what I mean?
I thought, me personally, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought the term hood came from neighborhood and it was just shortened. Like, I'm about to go back to my hood real quick.
Yeah, but it's just like the word, nigger. You my nigga, we can use it as an endearment, you know what I mean? But, people reference the hood like, shit, I ain't going to the hood. You know what they're referencing is not, I'm not going to the neighborhood. I'm not going to the hood where the ish go down. You know what I mean? I ain't trying to be out in them streets.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, if you see trailer parks, you're going to be like, I ain't going over there with the trailer trash people. You know what I mean? Like, no, you laughing, but that's the thing. There's a perception there, right? That's the white hood, but they don't say the hood. They say trailer trash or trailer park or whatever the case is, right? So that's what I'm saying is like, it's just different perspectives because different viewpoints because people are unaware, in my opinion.
True, I agree. They are unaware.
So so when we're talking about the two Americas, right? For those people that live in the trailers, those white folks that live in the trailers that may not have a lot of money, right? Is it a second America for them, or are they still part of that other America?
Ooh, good question.
I think they're part of that. They're part of America as a whole, but I think they're like a stepchild. They're forgotten about, right? And you saw that in the election, 4 years ago. A lot of those people felt like they weren't represented, so they came out to vote 4 years ago because they felt like Trump would represent them because Trump was speaking directly towards them.
What was he speaking toward them? So what was being spoken toward them? See, if you have that, if you having a different viewpoint, so you're looking at it from a different perspective, right? And if you're part of that group that in the trailers, if you're part of that group, right? What is he saying to you where he would say, that's my guy? Even for Barack, when Barack was in office, for us, even if all the policies weren't in line, you know what I could tell my son? You can literally be anything you want now. Before that, we would say to our kids, you can be anything you want. But in the back of our heads, you'd be like, except for president. But you can be anything you want. But literally at that point, you can say you can be anything. There's somebody in the White House that looks like you.
Mm-hmm.
So you have an example in front of you, so you can do that as well. So when when you talk about Trump and he's talking to those people, what is he saying to those people that would say that would make them say that's my guy?
I just think I don't know what he's saying for them to think that. I mean, but I think when you're forgotten or you feel like you've been forgotten, right? Like, and then somebody comes and they say they're going to help you out and do this for you, do that for you. I think it makes you feel like they're going to incorporate you again, right? So to me, is like those individuals from either the hood or from the trailer side, like it's still one America. They're just waiting to be incorporated back instead of it just looking at it like, oh, there's that side of America and there's our side of America. What are we going to do? You know what I mean? Like, I just think they're just waiting to be welcomed back and they want to be welcomed back. People in the hood don't want to live in the hood. They want to get out of the hood. People who don't live in the hood want to act like they're from the hood because they don't know. They never been.
So that with that situation, it's like what I'm looking at is, but you still watch the commercials. Who's on the commercials? You still going in the stores and looking at the boxes and who's on the boxes. You still going out and what's always considered right on the news. Two Americas right here. You have the dude that was in Kenosha, right? The dude that shot up the protesters. All right. So he leaves, like, as a matter of fact, he shoots up the protester. He has the gun in his hand. The cops roll by him, and he's carrying
assault rifle.
Assault rifle. He's carrying an assault rifle in the street, and you ride right past him. So, okay, maybe there's a lot going on and you don't see him. Whatever. He goes back home, right? And then the next thing you know, on the news, they're talking about how he volunteered and did community service hours and so forth and so on. Would that have happened if that was a black person that was walking down the street with an assault rifle?
Of course not.
So when you're looking at that from that perspective, obviously, I guess in Wisconsin, you can carry. So that's fine. But if a black person was walking down the street with an assault rifle, I guarantee you that wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be the same outcome.
Bro, you can carry in a few states, and like I said, you still gonna be looked at upon, differently. You know what I mean? Even if you do have a license, and hell, you over here, you can show a license, and they still looking at you crazy and ready to protect themselves, I guess, in the sense of, the way they treat us versus, the person from the other America. Like I said, even if you look at it, you want to mention the trailer park people. At the end of the day, if you line us up together, it's them or us. Yeah, they're in a trailer park, but at the end of the day, they're still, I would say, welcomed in when push come to shove. You know what I mean? It's not looked upon differently.
So are the laws the same across the board?
I think the laws are the same across the board. So here's the thing, right? I think the laws are the same for you, for me, for the next person. Where I think it differs is how it's applied to an individual, right?
So give an example of how the law is the same so I can be on the same page.
So for us, you can't speed. You got a speeding limit. If it's absolute 45 miles per hour, you can't go over 45 miles per hour. Now, if you're going 55, you might get pulled over. If I'm going 55, I might get pulled over. Now, you might not get off because you black. And I might get off because I'm a woman. Whatever the case. So that's what I mean. The laws are the same, but the way it's applied makes it different.
I don't know. So here's some pushback right here. In Wisconsin, no, in Michigan, when those people with those guns marched up, not even that one. when they marched up on the state capitol.
Oh yeah.
Wear the mask. They had weapons and everything. The law is you can carry, right? That's the law. If there was a group of black people that marched up on the state capitol with guns like that, it's still a state you can carry in, right? Is that law the same for everybody? Because you're gonna get ran up on. They're gonna come out if people that look like us run up on the state capitol carrying guns.
The state capitol is the key word.
They may not do nothing, but there's definitely gonna be some police out there and they ready to go. So if you're talking about the laws being the same, yeah, it's open carry. I'm not sure if it's open carry, but you can carry a weapon. But when it gets to that level, like, is that the same? Would you consider that to be the same?
I think that's where the two Americas come into play, right? Is the way the law is interpreted. Like, I seen a video where there's a group of, I guess, I don't know if they're Black Panther Party or if they're, something, but it's a group of black people that were walking down the street. They was riding down the street, and all of them were open carrying. And I think they was going to somebody's house to make sure like nothing happens to this specific person or something like that. Mm-hmm. And they were just letting them go. Now it could have been one of those things where it's like, well, we kind of outnumbered, so we're just going to kind of let them do their thing as long as they're doing it peacefully. But to me, that's where the two Americas come into play. The way you're treated versus the way I'm treated. If it's the same scenario and you're treated differently from me, that's where I start to see that there's two Americas.
What is that? That's clearly the two Americas there when you're talking about that. Like people having guns, carrying guns or whatever. If you're in the state that you can carry, it shouldn't even be an issue. You should be able to carry wherever. You should be used to seeing the guns. It shouldn't even be an issue. But if you see somebody else that don't look like you having a gun, now it's a little suspect. It's not suspect. You can carry in that state, so it shouldn't even be an issue. So the thing that I'm seeing is when you're talking about the two Americas is you have, okay, here's definitely one. You talk about crack, right? And you talk about opioid. Crack, they were putting people in jail. Throwing them in jail, minimum mandatory. Goodbye. You talk about the opioid, now we got an epidemic and these people need help. Didn't those people need help back then? But what's the difference?
True.
People dying from crack, people dying from this opioid thing. They needed help back then, and they need help now. Don't know black people own no planes back then to be flying all this stuff in. Like, where'd it come from?
But you also look at it as well. Crack, look at it from that perspective. You get more time, at least back in the day, you would get more time off of selling crack than you would get from cocaine, which is the pure form. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And you mean to tell me a person who got a kilo of cocaine, excuse me.
Oh, that's that Rona, bro.
Whatever. But a person with a kilo, you know what I mean? And a person who got crack cocaine that's in the hood, they get more time than that person who got a kilo. You know what I mean? And it's crazy. So, and I mean, crack cocaine was pretty much peddled through, the hoods. I was like to say, hey, I mean, at that point, I would say I guess when it comes down to the cocaine part, what would you say? The cartels, Mexicans and Colombians and stuff like that. And then you get to crack. Crack is cooked up. Who you got? Us, the black people. You know what I mean? That's what we got, that portion of it. But you get more time for crack cocaine than you got for actually pure cocaine. So that's definitely a form of, two Americas.
Even when you get down to the simplest things, as like my wife was saying, and you go into Walgreens and you look at the hair products. Yo, if it's not something specifically for Black women or women of color, then you're not going to have the Black person on the, what is Garnier? What is that? Did I say it right? Whatever. You're not going to have the Black person on that. Like, you're not going to see that. You go on that aisle, everything is going to be white people until you get to that section. That may have ethnic or something up there, and then you got your,
S-curl, yeah, your S-curl kit, your dark and lovely, you know what I mean?
Wait, then you get there. So how do you think a person feels when they walk into something and nothing is for them? You know what I mean?
But how do you live in a country and nothing is for you?
Nothing is for you.
You know what I mean? Because you got people who come from out of the country who get different grants and different things like that where they can open up businesses. They end up bringing more people in. Next thing you know, like I said, voila, you got a whole Chinatown that is running strong and consistent. You know what I mean? But you get the people who live right there, ain't happening.
Call me a conspiracy theorist again. But I don't think you ever got to worry about that Asian population coming in and just taking over America. You don't have to worry about an Indian population coming in and just taking over America. You don't have to worry about, you see the Mexicans, they're having a problem because too many, they're saying too many are coming in, right? So now we gotta get that under control. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'll give you grants and you can do this, that, and the third for your community or whatever, but I'm not worried about your community taking over everything. So for us, we're here. We can't be sent away, right? The only thing you can do is you can get put in jail. And then you lose rights when you get put in jail. So those things happen. But like when you're looking at it, man, those are the things that makes everything different. Like we're living in the America where we know is different for us than it is for other people. We know this for a fact.
And you brought up a good point with the crack epidemic and the opioid epidemic, right? The fact that this shows that there's a separation in America. You know what I mean? I think it's still one America as a whole, but I understand what you guys are saying, that it is two Americas because things are treated differently. Sean had mentioned, about cocaine being less, you get less time for cocaine versus crack. And then now the opioid epidemic isn't treated the same way as the crack epidemic. But, a part of that is people don't want to address stuff until it's right there at their front door, right?
True.
So all those people that was, a part of the opioid epidemic now, they was looking back back then like, oh, it's crack. It ain't got nothing to do with me. Yeah, those people are bad, but now their kids are using opioids and getting addicted. So now it's considered an addiction that you need help for because now it's directly affecting them. It's like rap music, right? Rap music wasn't considered bad until it started getting into mainstream America. And it's, then they started saying, oh, that's bad. That type of music promotes violence, degrades women, all this X, Y, and Z. But prior to that, they didn't care about it. So I think the way they look at those situations and the way they deal with it shows that there's a separation in America.
So what about this? So then it's like, it's not when it comes to their front door, like you said, and now they're having to deal with it. Now it's an issue. So that's a great point, because when you're looking at the protests and things that are happening now, a lot of people aren't on board because they don't have to deal with these things. They don't have to worry about getting pulled over and being shot, and they don't have to worry about a lot of the issues that these people that black people worry about or people of color worry about. They don't have to worry about being deported. They don't have to worry about their kids being taken away from them and put over here and they're over here. They don't have to worry about none of that because in America, everything looks like them. So they don't have to worry about that. And it's not white people's fault that is that way. It's the way that the system works. But at the end of the day, you have to be empathetic to other people's issues because that makes it better for everyone. So what does America mean what does America mean to you? Nostradamus, what does America mean to you?
I mean, honestly, for me, I can tell you what it meant for my parents. My parents being immigrants, I'm first generation in America. My parents looked at America as opportunity, right, for a better life from the country they was coming from. And they came over. They wanted to learn about America and incorporate themselves within the country and the traditions, while not forgetting the traditions that they agreed with from their country. The one thing I can tell you for certain is that they knew when they came to America is that they had to learn English. Whereas now I think a lot of people are coming to America saying, I don't know English. Why can't you learn my language? And that I don't agree with either.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So I think when you really get down to it, oh, hold on, before I go there, Sean, what does America mean to you?
I mean,
meat and potatoes,
fried chicken and watermelon. Let me stop. But no, basically, I mean, I was, of course, obviously born and raised in Connecticut. But I want to say, the America to me, and which has been presented to me, since I was a kid, was it had that stigma of, land of the free, the opportunity and stuff like that. That's, you have that free opportunity versus when you hear about the other stipulations other countries have where, they might, it'd be too hard to really get by and to better yourself due to the restrictions and the government issues and different things like that. But to me and how I was raised and, taught of America is, I would say basically the land of the free and the land of opportunity to do whatever you want to do. But to me, it's home.
So I can't. For me, I think America has a ton of opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think on certain levels, it's a little bit more difficult to get where you want to get to. But ultimately, you can get to it because it's not like certain countries that just keep people like this is what you deal with. There's no dictatorship or nothing like that over here. So you have the opportunity to do things that you want to do, but you gotta know the system and know how to move.
Correct.
And get the things that you need. So when I'm looking at it, it's like I appreciate being here, but just because I'm here doesn't mean I just got to take everything sitting down.
Correct.
Like some things need to be changed. So you point out those things that needs to be changed. And that's what I'm saying. From the other side, they have to be empathetic to those things because one day, like the opioid epidemic and crack epidemic and everything, it may flip. And when it does, now you're going to be asking for those things like, oh, well, what about this and what about that? Well, when we were talking about that back here, it was no conversation. It didn't even matter. But now that we're here, now it's an issue. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that I'm saying. Like, to me, that's what makes it the two Americas. So you're going to forever have that split that we know is different over there. Like the neighborhood I live in is mixed. But yo, when I leave this one, I ain't trying to go run to another neighborhood to be around all these people, man. I want to be by myself. And I would like people that look like me to be next to me, and nothing wrong with anything else, but I just want to see people of color do well. I want to have neighborhoods where I can go outside and I can see this and it not be considered, as Sean said, the hood. I don't know. I mean, but for me, that's what I see. I would like to have another Tulsa.
Bro, when I agree, and that's what when me and you, when I was cutting your hair, and I had you listening to the Diddy and Charlemagne interview, and he was talking about doing my black party to create that lane. You know what I mean? Like you said, we weren't born Republican or Democrat or anything like that. You know what I mean? You born black, but also to my point of course, where I'm from. Even up in Connecticut, like you said, Jay, you know what I mean? You want to be around people that you can relate to, basically. You know what I mean? People that look like you and stuff like that. But up in Connecticut, it's weird because when I think about it, I'd be like, damn, only thing I knew of up there was black, Jamaican, you had your Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, or whatever. But that was it. You know what I mean? That's what I was surrounded by. You know what I mean? I honestly didn't know. I guess I would say, being younger, I didn't know the Haitian community. You know what I mean? I didn't know the Guyanese community, this and that, whatever. So, yeah, my knowledge probably wasn't up to par on all of that stuff. You know what I mean? When you start looking at the ethnicities and stuff like that, until I actually came to Florida. And I started looking at the melting pot and I'm like, damn. Now I got my homie over here he's Vietnamese, you know what I mean? And I got another homie who Guyanese. And then, of course, I got people who look like me, you know what I mean? So it's like you start I'm like, damn, it's a huge melting pot. But I also didn't really see like the racist part of it, you know what I mean? Being where I was from, because like I said, in my hood, you're pretty much surrounded by people like you. It literally wasn't nobody over there. Like our schools up there, them joints ain't had windows, nothing like that. You in brick walls.
Dang,
you know what I mean?
Y'all at the Jehovah Witness Church. Ain't no window.
But no, straight up though. You know what I mean? They just rebuilt the high school over there not too long ago, a few years ago.
But check this out though. What do you think would happen if you built a community that's inclusive of your people, that became self-sustaining to where you didn't have to rely on living in mix, integrated with other people? So
here's my thing. Like having one of those communities, I wouldn't even care if white people were there. Wouldn't bother me at all. Here's the thing though. I'm not trying to run and go into a community with white people because I feel like being around white people makes everything right. Like, to me, no, that's the part I don't agree with. Like, if you move into a community and it's a whole bunch of white people, you're doing well. Like, that doesn't apply.
Why can't it? I feel you. I see where you at with that. Because why can't it be you move to a black neighborhood and it's like, oh, this is a well-off neighborhood and you're surrounded by black people. You know what I mean? It's like if you move into a neighborhood that got big houses, this and that, is predominantly thinking you're in the suburbs and you moving where the white people at.
Yeah, why can't I move to where black people are? And then when my kids come outside, they can see a whole bunch of excellent examples and not just their parents, right? They can go and they can see across the street, then you have these people here, you have these people here, and everybody's doing what they need to be doing. But in this community, it's a black community and you can see examples. I already look at TV and see the commercials with it's nothing but white people. I already see that. So you don't, it's like it's putting in your head that this is right. So I'm not racing to get into the neighborhood where all the white folks are moving. That's great. Your neighborhood is nice, but I need one where I can walk outside and I can see people that look like me doing well. That's the thing that works for me.
You saw the interview with Kendrick Perkins. My bad, Nostradamus. But Kendrick Perkins said the same thing when he got into that whole little, dispute with, I forget what player it was, where they was talking about him they was questioning his, ethnicity when it came down to how he is. And he was like, look, in my neighborhood, I'm one of the only blacks in my neighborhood, and I still get looked upon. You know what I mean? I still have to, look after my kids a certain way to make sure that they straight, because I got people looking at me sideways, and I've earned my way here. But you spend all that money, you paying all them taxes, and you still can't live a free, healthy, conscious life in a community that you're trying to raise your family in. You know what I mean? Due to the same crap, the different oppression, the different people that you're surrounded by. And me personally, I don't mind a melting pot. You know what I mean? I'm not racist by far. You know what I mean? I don't have an issue with nobody. It's all about the equality, though. You know what I mean? And I don't like the stigma, like you said. You know what I mean? When it comes down to, if it's a nice neighborhood, you automatically assuming that, this is where the white people are. So you moving up, to this area due to that aspect of it. It can't be, oh, shoot, like you said, Tulsa. This is, nice area. And like I said, you got Asia Town, Little Asian Chinatown. They have their own communities, and it's fine. You know what I mean? It works. Nobody caused no issues. You know what I mean? Nobody looking at them sideways. They run them blocks, different stores. Every store on the block is ran by them. You know what I mean? Why? Why can't we have that same equality and looked upon that same way, where we have a neighborhood and you got, your stores that is ran by people who look like you, and it should be okay, not in the sense of like you trying to, seclude yourself or, break yourself away from, everybody else in the world. But like I said, you see it every day. You go up Mills Avenue, you go right there to Colonial. Every store in a complex, in the whole parking lot, you got, whether you're getting food, restaurants, massages, whether you're getting their own bank. I mean, you got to look at that whole big picture. And one dude said on one of the podcasts I was listening to, this one of the football players, and he was just saying, like, it's funny and it's sad to look at it that way, but we open up shops in our own neighborhood, right? You get your you open up a hair supply store. You thinking twice now, because when you get somebody who look like you, and this is the sad part, hey man, what's going on, man? You know what I mean? Let me get that discount. We go up into them Asian stores, and a lot of them are in our hoods. They're not afraid to set up shop, but they got the restaurants. You got the Arabic cats out there who got the hair products. You know what I mean? You go to the hair store I go to in Pine Hills and North Lane, ran by the Arabics. But that's where I get all the products from, the different stuff. My wife go get hair and stuff with she braiding. You know what I mean? It's not ran by us, but who working in them stores? We are. You know what I mean? We the face of the store because of where it's at. You know what I mean? So it's got to change. Definitely.
Well, here's what I'm looking at it. I'm pro-black. Doesn't mean I'm anti-white, right? I just want to see my people do well. That's it. So it is when I speak like this, it's not saying that I hate white people. No, I have no problem with white people. But from where I'm standing, y'all okay. White folks are okay. You know what I mean? They ain't worrying about too much. Over here, we have issues over here that we got to address, because the first thing that'll come up when you're talking about black people being shot is black on black crime. Like when you're talking about stuff like that, that's the part that I have a problem with.
I agree. We don't get a fair shake.
If you're pro-black, I want to see my black people do well. I want to have these neighborhoods that look like this. I want to be able to have, when you get those neighborhoods that look, at the end of the day, you got to buy land because God ain't making no more, right?
Correct.
So if that's the case, why are we rushing to go get these houses that's not even on a third of an acre? That if something happens to the house, all your money's gone. So you don't own anything. Okay, you have the house, but if something happens to that, if you have land, it can burn. The whole thing can burn. But if they want that land, they just gonna clear it and build on it. It don't matter. You still own that. That's money in your pocket.
Man, let me tell you something, man. Like you said, is the narrative has to change. The messaging has to change, right? Like you talk about the things that you see on TV or on the boxes or in certain places, they might make white people look better. So then other people start feeling like, oh, it's a status thing. If I get to this level, then I'm better. And then you see on the flip side, you see, they show so much negativity around blackness and being black and stuff. So then people think that, oh man, if I'm pro-black, that's a bad thing. So like you said, the messaging has to change because, the more you see it, the more you buy into it, and the more you start to believe it. I wouldn't have a problem with the all black community that has a HOA and everybody's paying the HOA to maintain the community. You know what I mean? Like that. HOAs are good for the community.
Some of them.
And even with that, I wouldn't even have a problem with white people living in the neighborhood. But the majority of the neighborhood is black.
And I just think it gets down to the way the messaging is and the way it's treated, because in some instances you'll have, I remember reading a story about this white kid who went to go, basically, I don't know the details, but basically he was hanging out with some Crips. They went in to rob somebody or kill somebody. They killed somebody, and all of them got arrested. Well, the white person had got off. He's a kid versus other two black dudes who were Crips. They got charged with murder, whereas the white kid got off because they was saying how like, oh, he wasn't really there to do that. He was just, trying to see what the lifestyle was about, X, Y, and Z. And so that clearly shows that, the laws are the same, but they're not treated the same. Therefore, it sends the message that there's separation. There are two Americas. You know what I mean? And I think that needs to change. You guys had mentioned that at the beginning of the episode: justice, equality, life in general. You know what I mean? Like, I think those are huge when you can see that, when you're in the situation and you feel like I'm being treated differently, but somebody else in that situation can't empathize and say this person is being treated differently until they're in that situation. Then they're like, oh man, well, now I understand what y'all were going through. You know what I mean? Like there's definitely a separation within the America.
So, but I think, go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
So to your point. So this came up, right? 19 families buy 97 acres in Georgia to create black only safe space in the town, right? So think about that. You start out with anything. If you think about people getting the right to vote, somebody had to start. If you're gonna take a trip to California and you're gonna walk there, it all starts with the first step, right? You take the first step, your second step, and you keep walking. If one family goes out there and just buys some land, and then they start from there, another family comes, and so forth. Now you have a neighborhood, right? Then eventually, if you get enough people that think along the same lines, then you create your own town. Then from there, you can keep going and keep growing it and keep going. But somebody has to be willing to go out there in the middle of nowhere and drive 30 minutes to get back to a Walmart or a Publix or whatever to start the whole process. But I think a lot of us just look for this convenience. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to stay here, rather than, if you want to create the opportunity, it's not going to be easy. It's something that you're going to have to step out and do, and it's going to be inconvenient. Going out and protesting so you can change laws is inconvenient. getting bit in your behind with a dog for the right to vote is inconvenient. But in order for things to happen, you got to take that step. So that's what I'm saying. To Nostradamus' point, the messaging has to be different. You got to look at things a little bit differently. But if you want your kids to have certain things, then you got to deal with the inconvenience so they can have these things. Because once you have those things in place, they see what it takes to create a neighborhood. They see what it takes to have a great thriving economy where you have Black people owning stuff in the neighborhood, and then other businesses are going to come in because there's money in this neighborhood. They ain't stupid. They know who's going to spend money.
People got to take pride in those neighborhoods too. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, you had mentioned Tulsa. I know up in Atlanta, Martin Luther King, they were in a spot where they were setting up shop to where they could be self-sustained as well for that community. But even here locally, we have Eatonville, right? Eatonville, probably should have been that community, but things went awry over there.
Yeah, but Eatonville is so tiny too, bro. I mean, Eatonville is like how big is Eatonville? I mean, you're talking about like one, almost basically like it's, I don't even know how to describe it because it's so tiny.
But even with it being tiny, that should be a great way to start.
That's what I'm saying. Because Winter Park at one point was just as small, and Winter Park just kept growing.
That's
you're talking about poverty, a poverty-restricting place, Eatonville, versus, like you said, a Winter Park where there's money. You know what I mean? So yeah, so we can be in that area, but what resources?
But to go back to what I was saying, if you're buying this land and you're building this home on this land, you're not really gonna have anybody who buys a home like that and has to build their home. They're gonna take pride in that home. Most people do. Now, that's when the HOA comes into play. But being able to take care of your neighborhood and make your neighborhood look good, and you have certain standards in that neighborhood so that the houses can be worth something if somebody decides to sell. But there should also be some rules in place for the people who purchase in this neighborhood because we're trying to achieve something here. If you're not moving along those lines, move somewhere else.
So for an example, it's a guy I be watching on YouTube, right? I don't know if you ever heard of Homeboy. He is a rapper dude from like San Francisco, the Bay Area.
We ain't plugging nobody else, man.
No, but JT the bigger figure, right?
We ain't plugging nobody else. They ain't plugging us. We ain't plugging nobody else.
No, I feel you. But I'm just saying, he moved to Africa, all right? Moved his family over to Africa. And it's like him, his wife, and he probably got like 4 kids, something like that. But what he's doing over there, he's staying in a house right now that they're, I guess, renting. But he done got with them brothers over there who look just like him, and they building up their own community. You know what I mean? Where he got another some more family who came out from the U.S. who done moved over there. You know what I mean? And they getting houses built. They're actually building out a whole community for the same thing you're talking about, Jay, where he done brought acres of land on, I'm talking about for pennies on a dollar. All these acres of land and trying to develop their own community. You know what I mean? For them to thrive and, like I said, live a happy life with people who look just like him. That's his whole goal.
So that's an excellent point that you brought up, because I was going to get there as my final question. I was going to ask you guys, if there is 2 Americas and you feel like you're not on the right side of America, whatever side that is, are you willing to leave? Are you willing to move somewhere else?
Move somewhere else, like where?
Anywhere. If you don't think you're on the right side of America and you're fed up, you're sick and tired of it, are you willing to move? Just leave the country.
So I don't think we need to move. Like, me knowing that I'm on the other side, I understand it. this may be wrong, but I understand it. So I know how to move within those parameters, right? That's why I'm saying you have to go get your own land and you build out. When you have people who think like think about this in neighborhoods, because in my neighborhood, I see it as clear as day. My neighborhood got too dark, white people start leaving.
That's in my neighborhood too.
All the time. And then after a while, will those houses still be valued as the same because it's a bunch of black people here? If you're looking at it from that standpoint, then you're gonna lose. I don't care what somebody else is saying, what my neighborhood is worth. But because to me, my neighborhood is worth everything when I have the people around me and we're helping each other do whatever it is that we need to do. Like, to me, what somebody is appraising my house as does not matter when I'm doing what I need to do. And I'm seeing people like me. That's everything to me, because my kids get to see that. Then they understand it. Then they understand that being black is beautiful. And they understand that being black is great. It's nothing wrong with being black. Shoot, it's nothing wrong with being white, but I'm black. So I'm dealing with it.
Here's the thing. Like, I understand what you're saying, but you shouldn't have to feel like you're on the wrong side of America and have to move accordingly. So that's where I got the problem with. Like, you shouldn't. Nobody should feel like they're on the wrong side of America. We should all feel like everything's inclusive for everybody.
It would be nice to be that way, but that's not a reality.
Yeah, it's definitely not a reality. That's not. If certain people want to feel a certain way to stay on top, then everything else is going to be made to look a certain way. Like, here's another reason you got two Americas. If black people go out and protest and you get pissed after seeing people get shot down over and over again. Like, I think the George Floyd thing happened because people had to sit there and watch a dude for 9 minutes go to his death. Mm-hmm. So after watching something like that, maybe the human side comes out and say, damn, that was wrong. But when we're watching certain stuff, even if it's some dude selling Lucy's on the street, in our head, I shouldn't die about that. But even though it's not me and I'm seeing that looks like that could be me or somebody that I know. So you're literally sitting there and you get tears that come to your eyes, even though it's not you. The human factor comes in and you're like, damn, that could easily be me.
And guess what? The only thing, and the sad part is when you think of a person, and I know, like, I mean, when you get the mentality and the mental space that we have to be in, when it comes down to seeing something like that, the only thing you feel like you could do is document and say, hey, let me whip out my phone. Let me put this on camera. I don't think it's enough brave enough people. They're getting there now, but hey, let me go run up on this dude and get him off of him. You know what I mean? It's like all I can do is whip out my phone and look like I'm trying to get some type of fame. But for the most part, I'm just trying to record to show proof that, look, this dude didn't do nothing. So we just going to record it. And this is the weapon that I have to use because, God forbid, if I step to him like, yo, you need to get up off him. You can't do this. You know what I mean? Now I'm on the ground.
So what about this? Think about the 90s, early 90s, when black people used to be like, yo, the cops doing X, Y, and Z. And people would be like, nah, they're cops. No way they can do that. The reason they pulling out these cameras now is because from back then when we used to say, yo, no, they beating people down, they killing people. And they're like, nah, that's not happening. Now it's in your face. And people still want to say, no, it's not happening. They still want to say, oh, well, he had a record from 20 years ago. So that he deserves to get beat from 20 years ago. So I'm sure something happened in your past and you should just get beat for it now.
But like, if you powerful though, I mean, and that's the hard part. I think that's one of the hardest things when you feel like you powerful and the only power you got is to record something because you also feel powerless because now you're talking about me going against these cops. Now, if I jump on this cop, if I don't have no other following support, what's going to happen to me? Now I'm going to get beat up by these other cops here. I'm going to get jumped, tased, hit with the stick, God forbid, shot because I done tried to help and I may have stopped them and saved a George Floyd's life or someone who looks like me's life just off of the strength of like, yo, y'all can't be doing this. And you able to actually step in and do something rather than whip out the phone and record and say, you know what? Well, at least I have evidence to show that, this person did this and that, whatever. And you guys just, took him down like an animal. You know what I mean? He didn't do anything. So I think that's the hardest part. You know what I mean? Because like, where do you get into say, you know what? I want to retaliate, even if it's just to stop him from doing it. You know what I mean? It ain't to get even and you going swinging on him, but you can't even get close to him without putting your own life in danger. You know what I mean? So I think that's very hard for people. You know what I mean? When it comes to looking at it from that perspective, you know what I mean?
So back to Amsterdam's question, I don't think we need to move like out of the country. Like if you want to stay here, then just create your own. Start creating your own stuff right here. But don't worry about everything that's going on over here. You got to stay focused on what you got right here. Even once when they say when race drivers are racing and their car, when they're driving, they start to slide, they don't focus on where the car is going. They focus on where they want to go. So if the car is sliding, they're continuously looking at the direction that they want to go instead of looking at them getting close to this wall. Mm-hmm. If you keep your focus like that and don't worry about everything that's going on, because all of that is a distraction. You can do everything that you need to do. And even though it's two Americas and people over here may not even recognize or care about what you have going on, it's everything that you have going on right here for yourself. Don't worry about the outside distractions. You just got to be able to stay focused and stay on what you're trying to do. At the end of the day, we all know that it is two Americas, and you can leave and go to another country, but guess what you got to deal with over there? Whatever issues they got over there. At least I know what I got here, or whatever I'm dealing with here. So to me, I don't need to move.
That's that saying where they say, I'd rather deal with the devil I know than the devil I don't know. You know what I mean?
That's deep. I never heard that one before.
If I have to go back to Africa, or if I go to England, or wherever, I have to learn their culture and their customs before I can actually do the things that I want to do. If that
even
makes sense.
Even if they look like you.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's
if I have anywhere you go, you're going to have those issues, and you're going to have to figure out what those nuances are. And then once you figure that out, then you can do what you need to do. Here, I know what those nuances are. I know what I'm dealing with. So as long as I know what I'm dealing with, I can do what I need to do. I just got to understand the system. Then I can maneuver within.
I hear you. And I used to tell also to that fact, Nostradamus, my wife, since she's from Africa as well. So at that point, I used to ask that same question jokingly, like when they be like, dang, they be wilding over here in America. So I'd be like, why you come over here? You know what I mean? But, you know what I mean? Like they say, of course, over there, now that you got dictators, but for the most part, you know what I mean? A lot of people, once they get here, they'll tell you, they'll be like, man, I was bamboozled. You know what I mean? Because I think it flip-flops with each place you go to. Because I'm sure if we go over there and the stuff they pump us to say, okay, well, yeah, you go to Africa, you're looking at the boondoos and the sticks and all this stuff. You don't see the city life. You seeing villages and you looking like you in huts and stuff until someone really open their eyes and say, damn. You know what I mean? They got full-fledged everything that you see around here that you living in every day is right there as well. And a lot of people are fooled and thinking that, oh, you know what I mean? They lacking over there. But to Jay's point, yeah, you would have to become accustomed. Like, I don't know how I can deal with load shed. You know what I mean? Will they be turning off the power, after a certain few hours in the day? You know what I mean? And it's called load shedding. I don't know how I maneuver. I'm used to having internet, my power, my lights, you know what I mean? 24 hours a day. You know what I mean? So it's definitely a different lifestyle to get accustomed to, but is it possible? I'm going to say, yeah, it is possible. You know what I mean? Do I stay open for opportunities and thoughts to that of, do I feel like I'm just trapped here? No. But I have more insight once I go over there and visit and see what life is like over there. But I mean, I try to keep my options open, but I don't feel like we need to move nowhere to create what we need to create where we are from and where we at. I ain't gonna say where we're from because most people say we're from Africa. No, ancestors and stuff like that. But where we are right now is where we are. And we just got to do our best with what we got and try to pull it together. That's
Man, whenever I take a job or whatever, whenever I do something and they tell me this is how it is, I take that with a grain of salt. I know once I get in and you start working, everything changes. And I understand that and I'm aware. So when it happens, I'm not surprised. I know it was coming. I just need to figure out what those things were up front, and then I can do what I need to do. That's how I see it. It, to me, you never go in anything thinking it's green, that the grass is greener on the other side. Because when you get over there, there's going to be certain things that you don't like over there.
You're right.
So I'm going to stay over here and I'm going to manage my grass and I'm going to get what I need when I need it. That to me, that's the bottom line. So yeah,
Now,
America's, sure, it's two Americas, but it's not going to stop me from getting to where I want to get to.
but to your point, and I know you want to build a house and stuff like that, your own. I put it to you like this: my brother-in-law, his cousin, out there in Africa. Well, he's here in the States. You know what I mean? But his mom and them is still over there. They built a nice house, full power, everything. And you talking about? I think theirs is like a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath or something like that. But they got everything in there, and you talking about 30 bands. You know what I mean? So when you start thinking of them numbers and you be like, oh, word? 30 bands and I can build what I want, how I want, you know what I mean? And just to think, that's a 3-2. You know what I mean? You, depending on your bag, like I said, that money is different over there versus what we have over here. You know what I mean? So at that point, like you said, you definitely can go over there and live like a king. But it ain't about running. You know what I mean? You definitely want to do your best of where you at and make sure that, we definitely have a foundation where we can build stuff off of right where we are. And I'm like you, like I said, I can cut my grass and everything. I'm not a big fan of HOAs due to the fact, my HOA I'm at, I mean, you got houses that still, you're always going to have your people who, you know what I mean? But for the most part, I think them HOAs be highway robbery. Just because if you can't keep it, if it's not an HOA to where, like my homie who live over there in Winter Garden, where they got a company that comes, they cut your grass, they weeding your house, they doing all that stuff, and you paying them HOA fees. I think that's a whole different level if you're talking about, that property value and keeping that stuff to a certain degree. You know what I mean? Based upon who you have in your neighborhood. Because guess what? At that point, everybody's yard should be looking the same. You know what I mean? Nobody grass should be dying, this and that, whatever. Now, is it more? It's probably paid more per month or per quarter. Yeah. But at that point, I think that HOA is effective at that point. Mine, I don't really think they're too damn effective. That's my personal opinion.
So let's go ahead and wrap it up. And final thoughts, Mr. Nostradamus, final thoughts.
So I'm going to say, even though at the beginning of the show, I said it was only one America, that's not true. It is two Americas. It's two Americas for me in the simple fact that, you have the same laws being placed upon people differently. you're treated differently based on how you look. You don't get the same justice. You don't get the same equality. A lot of times you don't get the same opportunities. And for me, those are the reasons why I think that there are two Americas. Even though I would like to say that no, it's only one America, I do feel that there is a split within the country, and in order to fix it, it does have to start within.
All right, Sean.
I'm gonna say what he said. You know what I mean? Basically, hey, it's you know how I feel about it. Like I said, all we searching for is equality, and we should be able to have that same type of dominance. You know what I mean? And the things we do, because like I said, from some of our first episodes, when it came down to the culture, we moved that needle in pretty much everything. You know what I mean? And it's known, but we don't own ish. You know what I mean? We don't have our own community. You don't have your own, politicians and different stuff like that can move different needles for you within your own community. You know what I mean? To make those changes. You know what I mean? So me personally, yeah, there is two Americas, and it's always going to be that way until we really step in the forefront and, take ownership and take charge.
So I agree. I think it is two Americas, but I think there's some things that could be changed, right? Like, first off, it is two Americas, and to Nostradamus' point, the messaging is a certain way on purpose because that's the branding, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of things that you got to understand that isn't being taught. That's entrepreneurship. We talked about this in our last episode, right? Entrepreneurship, finance, and then and voting, very important, and then understanding the power that you have. So when we talked about the entrepreneurship, it giving us freedom, we talking about the finance giving us wealth, and we talking about the voting giving us options, right? And then when you couple all that together, then you have the power to be able to do some of the things that you want to do. And then I'm not worried. The one thing we can't worry about, there are two Americas, but the one thing you can't worry about is what everybody else is doing. You remember back in the day, and you used to ask your mom for something, and then she would be like, "No, you ain't getting that." And well, I ain't never do this, but I heard this happen, right? And the kid be like, "Woo, well, everybody else is doing it." And your mom be like, "Well, you ain't everybody else." And that's exactly how you got to look at that thing. Everybody else may be moving over here. Well, I ain't everybody else.
If such and such jump off a bridge, you going to jump too?
Exactly. So you got to create your own within what you have. If you have that, man, listen, you'll be able to do anything you want, even though we know there are clearly two Americas, but you won't care because you have your own America right here. America's great. I'll say that at the end of the day. America's great. And when you really look at it, if you do what you need to do, then you can create your own. And we can do the same thing that we need to do over here and not worry about everything else. That's all I got, folks. So I guess we can go ahead and wrap it up. Anything else anybody want to say before I hit this closing real quick? Nope, crickets? Great. Listen, thank you for coming out and joining us on another episode of Debate That. Could you all please like, subscribe, hit the notification button, and please share. Take this question, talk amongst yourselves, amongst other people, and just see what you think about having two Americas. And just rap, talk about it, build, come up with a plan. But at the end of the day, we need all y'all to debate that.
You see the light, I see the pain. You call it chaos. We watching for change.
All right, y'all have
like
a black on black violence and neglect the reasons that's behind it. Let's talk about cause and effect, but you ain't ever bring up that yet. America was built on slavery, so we never seen a common ground. Things ain't never been equal when the law still got us bound. Just think in 1964, we had to use the back door. Too close to still feel pain. Take a trip down memory lane. But one thing for certain, my people are hurting. I'm seeing the beauty, you seeing the circus. When we scream out Black Lives Matter, that don't mean that we don't value yours. It's just our house is on fire, so just pass us the water. We gotta fight until we win. We want justice, nothing else I wanna live. We gotta fight for our kids. So don't think we giving up until we get it. Oh, we gotta hold on. All we gotta do is stay strong. So we gotta hold on. No matter what it takes, let's stay strong. You just gotta hold on. We want justice, nothing less, we standing strong. I'm telling you to hold on. Yeah, I'ma let you know that everything will be okay. Take a look at yourself, understand who you are. I see a black king, I see a black queen. Don't be ashamed of your scars. Spreading the love of your family, praying for peace for your sanity. Take a look at yourself, your skin is your wealth. Lean on your brother for help. Everything's happening is breaking me down, but seeing the unity's picking me up. Feeling this weight of this gravity, but can't let them damage my sanity. Been using this love, we gotta hold on. All we gotta do is stay strong. So we gotta hold on. No matter what it takes, let's stay strong. You just gotta hold on. We want justice, nothing less, we standing strong. I'm telling you to hold